Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across this great wide world of ours. Um, I'm going to continue this like I did yesterday on the safe and clean water that the the thing that I'm creating, this nonprofit I'm creating, and I was thinking today, um, what what about water and one of the big issues um, that I saw was plastic plastic water bottles, and that is one of my big things that just literally drives me. I use the word cray cray, which means crazy. I don't like the word crazy because but I say cray cray. And one of the reasons is I came up with 3 points concerning water and plastic water, and one of them uh, is it uh, creates pollution. When I talk about that, is we're talking about uh, it creates a pollution like in the ocean, and we talk about they always talk about in the ocean where you'll hear about plastic, and they're coming up with ways to get the plastic out of the ocean, and it causes you can go along, say for instance, any kind of river bed or creek bed, and chances are you're going to find a plastic bottle, and the issue becomes and then when you get especially when you get hot, say a lot of water and the rivers rise, and you get to areas where there's low flooding, then you get more pollution, plastic, and the issue becomes then you need to get somebody to go along the waterways because there again, birds, fish, or anything could get their mouth in something and they get stuck and and do damage to themselves. And every once in a while, you'll hear something about like a dog or a cat getting its head caught in a plastic bottle. Uh, where it wants some kind of food source, especially along the roadsides. And and you every once in a while we'll see a wild animal also where this occurs because really plastic doesn't biodegrade. And this brings me to the second point that is it's not if you're into renewable energies, it creates a resource depletion. In other words, 3 liters of water are are needed to produce just a liter of a plastic bottle. So in other words, here we are using clean water or water source to produce a, a initiative that we needed clean water, and there again, the issue becomes it's cheap and people companies can use it to bottle water, and people will buy it. You can go to any in the summertime. You can go to, like I did this summer in the car, and it's hot, and people are on corners selling water bottles, and it drives me crazy. It's like, oh my god, they got plastic water bottle. And I used to do that, but then when I realized, not necessarily going to sell that, but I did a delivery business, and I had the plastic water, and it was like, God, I don't like doing it because, but when I would sell it, I would say, please use it in a recycle. Please, when you finish with it, please put it in a recycling bin because I'm big on the recyclables, and that's an issue that needs to be addressed when and the other issue about plastics, but plastic water bottles are just I think it's cheap for companies to produce and people like that, but you know, you know, uh, I try to recollect or rethink about when plastic bottles came into existence, and I believe it was like maybe the 1980s, 1990s. Before then, if you go to the store, everything was in some type of glass bottle and not necessarily plastic. And I remember, I shouldn't laugh about it, but I remember working at a garden store, and I would always hate when somebody would go down the chemical aisle because everything was glass, and you would hear it go to the floor because you realize, and then it would smell up the store because of the fact, the glass cracked and the chemical went all over the floor. And like I said, sometimes in the 1980s, 1990s, we started going to plastic. So, and like I said, and then the issue that becomes out of it is the issue that to produce plastic, you need oil, and some form of oil. And you need, like I said, I just said water, so that we're depleting on our natural resources, it's oil and gas, because you got to heat up that, and as well as water, and all three are needed at this time to continue what we're doing. Though I'm not a big component of fossil fuels, and I think that we come to a point where we need to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. It was when President George H. Bush said, we are addicted to oil, and then the issue becomes, we convert a lot of this oil, especially to plastics and other forces of resources that really naturally, when they're gone, they're gone. It's the same thing when I was teaching last year, and it would be, we would talk about extinction, and we talk about environmental. Once the species is gone, it's gone. You can't bring it back, and there's no rationale behind it. So anyway, and the final issue is the landfill and landfill perspective. The bottles end up in the landfill are not biodegradable. So in other words, there again, like I just said previously, when we have, you can go to a waterway and people will take uh, plastic on our riverways, or go fishing and they'll use plastic water bottles and whatever, and then you just leave it there, and then there again goes in the waterways, then it pollutes the water, and then the issue becomes, if it's something where an animal can uh, wrap itself around it, it doesn't biodegrade. It would be great if we worked on research and development, where if a plastic bottle, if it would sit in the sun for like 3 or 4, would biodegrade. But then the issue becomes, when you're dealing with putting water in a plastic bottle, and I'm sure warehouses would put it in, not necessarily put it in a location where it would be safe for consumption. And there, when we're talking about that, there's chemicals within um, plastic that are not safe to drink as either. So my conception is what I usually do. It's a little bit more expensive. Is I usually use a glass bottle water, or I use a stainless steel container. Though I do have this thick plastic cup that I use on a daily basis for water. But like I said, I always, when I go to the store, when I go down, because I want to buy distilled water, it's in a plastic, gallon thing. But I need the distilled water for my plants. So there we go. The issue becomes, we're using water for just that. So, but if we went to a glass or some kind of other issue, stainless steel, the cost of that would go up, raise, and then, right now the big issue becomes affordability. So the issue becomes, what I've said before, is one reason I'm doing this is to educate the public, even though things are, to limit the use of plastics that we buy in the stores, and to maybe once we get home, convert it over to stainless steel versus some glass bottles. So anyway, these are for some food for thoughts. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Also, please feel free to email me at North America Safe and Clean Water at yahoo.com. Email is in the description of down at the bottom. Please also donate to my charity, which what I want to do is educate children on the value, as well as senior citizens or civic centers, on the value of clean and safe water. Anyway, folks, thanks for listening and thanks for tuning in, and have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.